And CBS News has been investigating a grassroots effort to purge voter rolls ahead of the 2024 election. As people are convinced that the lie that voter fraud is what robbed Donald Trump of the presidency in 2020. Well, a large number of these folks, generally coming from the right, activists is what they are, have been sifting through registration lists and now questioning their fellow citizens' qualifications to exercise the vote. Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett has this story for us. Major, good morning.
Good morning, Tony. Good morning, everyone. There is indeed a national effort underway to police voter registration rolls. Now, what looks at first to citizen detectives as something fishy can often be an innocent or technical error. But that doesn't mean the right to vote isn't jeopardized. Consider the case of 55-year-old Gulf War veteran James McWhorter of DeKalb County, Georgia.
Enter this Kroger in suburban Atlanta, make a quick left, and you will find Master Barber James McWhorter holding court.
They giving it to him.
For 20 years, McWhorter used this barbershop as his mailing address. In October, the county sent him an unusual letter. His voter status was being challenged.
I had to put on my glasses just to make sure. You know, it said what it was saying.
McWhorter was told to respond or risk the cancellation of your voter registration.
Why would someone challenge my right to vote?
The county was not challenging McWhorter's right to vote. A citizen of DeKalb County was. Her name, Gayle Lee. She filed this document alleging McWhorter had improperly registered to vote using a commercial address. Lee went to McWhorter's barbershop and took pictures to prove the point.
Had you ever met Gayle Lee? No, I didn't know Mrs. Lee from a can of paint.
I think God has been leading me in this.
Gayle Lee is a retiree who lives with her husband. She invited us to the back porch of her suburban DeKalb County home.
What is your feeling about who won the 2020 election?
I believe Donald Trump won the election.
Lee became convinced something was wrong with voting in Georgia. This, despite 3 recounts confirming Trump's loss. Lee started scrutinizing voter rolls.
They are bloated unnecessarily.
Lee and other citizen sleuths devote hours each week to inspecting county rolls, looking for signs of what they suspect is rampant fraud, such as names that appear more than once or data suggesting a registrant is deceased.
I am requesting that these challenges brought before you today be removed from the list of electors.
Each challenge requires a hearing to decide if the voter will be stricken from registration rolls.
How many challenges have you filed?
I think it's only about 500.
She says only because some in her citizen network have challenged far more.
All in favor?
We found more than 80,000 challenges have been filed against Georgia voters since 2021, when the Republican-led legislature changed the law, allowing one citizen to challenge an unlimited number of voters.
Well, welcome to our weekly voter rolls working group.
This is not just happening in Georgia. CBS News obtained video of conservative activists strategizing how best to deploy voter challenges across the country.
And I truly believe that there is fraud in the system, which is just not true.
DeKalb County Election Board Chair Carly Swift told us the challenges instead identify administrative errors and technical violations that shouldn't deprive citizens of their right to vote. Her staff has spent hundreds of hours dealing with voter challenges that she said so far tend to target the same demographic categories.
And it's young voters, it's people of color, and it's people that are unhoused.
It took a toll. And it still
In 1991, James McWhorter returned from combat duty in the Gulf and struggled with alcohol and homelessness. When he last registered to vote in 2008, he used the only address he had, the barbershop.
My friends, my family never knew I was displaced. They never knew I was homeless. I would come back here after we would close, sleep here at the shop, get up an hour before we open.
10 days after McWhorter learned his voter registration had been challenged, he defended his right to vote before the election board.
I paid taxes here for 20 years, even though I was homeless.
And for the first time, faced Gayle Lee.
For you to be able to challenge me, you have that right as a citizen of DeKalb County. But I served to give you that right.
And it was hurtful that she would do something like that.
Have you in your mind come up with an explanation of what the motive is?
To disenfranchise a certain demographic. You're trying to put your foot on someone else's neck.
I mean, all he had to do was call up the office and give him his address. It's not exactly a heavy foot.
After the hearing, McWhorter, who is no longer homeless, updated his address to bring it into technical compliance. Gayle Lee said the system worked.
Can you understand how people who are African American might feel this deeply, personally, in that your work feels threatening to them?
I would think they would want their vote protected too, because someone who doesn't belong on the rolls would take away their vote.
Make sure we have fair, honest elections.
Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger oversees Georgia elections and voter rolls.
Is that core assumption that the system is riddled with fraud valid?
No, we have objective voter rolls. They're clean, they're accurate.
Gayle Lee told us she wants fairness, not partisan advantage. But Raffensperger said elections in Georgia have never been fairer.
It's never been easier to vote. We believe, the model for what election integrity, election accessibility should look like throughout the entire country.
We pressed Raffensperger more than once on whether he supported mass citizen voter challenges. He says he's waiting on guidance from a federal court that is scrutinizing the practice. And until the court rules, Jerika, citizens like Gayle Lee can keep filing unlimited voter challenges.
Wow, you know, this really highlights the strategy being used to try and prevent people from having their voices heard when they vote. Major, how many of these challenges have actually been successful?
So these are Georgia numbers. Our investigation found that at least 12,000 challenges were upheld. It's about 15%, but election officials tell us that those challenges are overwhelmingly clerical errors and technical violations, not evidence of widespread fraud. Jerika?
All right, you got to vote. Major Garrett, thank you.
And of course, that's a fantastic, well-rounded, complete report there, including, we heard from Raffensperger, the Secretary of State. 11,000 at least have been purged from the rolls. I mean, the margin of victory in Georgia was less than, or 12,000 has been purged. The margin of victory in Georgia was less than 12,000. I mean, It's going to have a real meaningful difference. Yeah. And we heard they were targeting certain types of voters who you might presume are voting for the Democrats.
Three recrowns.
In their lives.
3 recrowns.